Hello everyone, and welcome to yet another Soulsborne boss tier list. Today, we're here with Sekiro, Shadows Die Twice. For a while, I was under the impression that this game was fairly underrated. It didn't get nearly as much praise as other games like Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3, and was often criticized for a lack of replayability. But in recent times, especially around my recent playthrough of Sekiro on the channel, which you can check out. It's in the Soulsborne streams playlist. I found out that there are a lot of people that really, really like this game. Even more so than, some of the other FromSoft titles. And I've been reminded that the bosses in this game, for the most part, are quite outstanding. I would argue that when it comes to how the bosses are balanced and designed within the mechanics and combat of the game, Sekiro bosses probably have the greatest overall quality of any of the entries. Um, so, why don't I get into that now? Much like with the Bloodborne video, I've got all of the mini-bosses up here first. None of these provide memories for us to get attack power upgrades. Most, if not all of them, provide the prayer beads for increasing your health, or provide some other sort of item. So we start off with the first mini-boss in the game, Leader Shigenori Yamauchi. He's basically the same as the Samurai Generals, but not as strong. He's alright. Nothing crazy. I'd probably put him like, I don't know, down around here somewhere. Fairly unremarkable. Great start when I talk about overall really good quality. And I'd put the Samurai Generals probably around there as well. Because, they're basically the same. The Chained Ogre. Chained Ogre's got some questionable hitboxes, and it's a little bit annoying that most of its attacks seem to be grabs. Not great. Headless. Another one we're putting in here. I don't really like that you can basically only fight them with an item, a consumable item that is for the most of the game in limited supply. They're not the most enjoyable challenge ever. Next we have the Shinobi Hunter. They're pretty good. They're mostly there for you to really test out Makiri counter, because you will presumably have it by the time you reach them, and if you don't, they're basically there to tell you, hey, get the Makiri counter. I would probably put them like somewhere around here, maybe. Yeah. Then we have Juzo. Juzo is alright on his own, but the problem is where you fight him. He's, got a fuckload of enemies around him. That's a little bit, but he's still, like, fine on his own. I would put him around... somewhere around here. Yeah. Blazing Bowl. Alright. Now then, the Ashina Elite. These guys, at least the first one, are great. Absolutely fantastic for making sure you have your deflection timings down. The one you get to in the late game, I think they are really meant to serve that same purpose, but like, just to a way higher degree. I would probably put them up around here somewhere. We'll put them low quality. Low in the quality tier. Armored Warrior. They're interesting because they are not a boss you're supposed to really get death blows on. You're really just supposed to get down their posture so that you can knock them off of the bridge. They're interesting in that respect, and he's interesting in a story respect, you know, because of his son, Robert, whose names you all remember, because that's, like, the one really memorable thing about him. I would say he probably goes up around here somewhere. Yeah. Longarm Centipede. These guys are really easy, but they're fun to deflect, because they just do attack spam, and then you can just kind of do a deflection spam. Not like entirely spam. It's more so just they do a lot of attacks, but they're pretty much always at the same tempo. So it's really just like a rhythm thing. I dig them. Shit, I dropped them. I would put them probably around here somewhere. Somewhere around here. Yeah. Next we have the 7 Ishin of Spears. These guys are fucking brutal the first time around. And, like, even after the fact, they're still pretty goddamn tough. They really are a case of you need to get their moveset down or they're gonna fucking ruin your life. But they're great. They're fantastic. I would put them around... Probably around here somewhere, honestly. They're very solid mini-boss enemies. Lone Shadow, kind of the same respect as that. I'd put them around there as well. They're also fairly challenging little mini-boss enemies, though. They're much faster. They are, now that I think about it, they are actually quite similar to the 7 Spears. But instead of doing, like, singular big powerful attacks, for them it's mostly, like, flurries and kicks and stuff. Shichimen Warrior. Yeah, I'd put him more around here. Snake Eyes, I dig them. They're neat. I like the fucking gun grab. That is definitely quite an interesting thing. Tokujiro. Okay, so Tokujiro is basically just Juzo, but doesn't really have any of the problems, because you can just, like, snipe the monkeys with shurikens really easily. I would probably put him... around here somewhere. Miss Noble. Oh! Oh! Oh my god, the Miss Noble. A name that strikes fear into the hearts of men the world over. Perhaps, to this day, even after the release of Elden Ring and the emergence of Melania, the hardest boss to ever be put in a FromSoft game. Anyway, Orin of the Water, a very good duel for a mini-boss. I like it a lot. I would put her probably around here. Somewhere around there. Sakura Bull. Okay, so it's basically the Blazing Bull, but you just use the fucking firecrackers to make it run into the wall. So, you know, it's just kind of a little more on the boring side than anything else. Yeah. Okami leader Shizu, barely a fight. I would put him, like, kind of around here, too, because you can basically one-shot them. There's not much to them. Shigekichi of the Red Guard. Pretty much just Tokujiro, but with fire. Alright, time for the real bosses. This is where the real quality comes in. Gyobu, our first ever horse-bound boss, I think. Well, no, technically we have the Executioner's Chariot, but that's more of a puzzle. This is actually a guy on a horse that you're fighting. He's a very solid introductory boss. You pretty much learn all of the bells and whistles of the combat when fighting him. You learn deflection times, you learn jump timings, you learn to use the grappling hook and bosses. You get environmental clues for using firecrackers against the horse. And Gyobu himself is a fairly entertaining character. He is the singular reason anyone ever plays the game with the English dub. I'd say he's definitely some quality. I'd probably put him around here. Next we have Lady Butterfly. Our first, well, if you don't count Tutorial Genichiro, our first humanoid boss, like real boss. And she is fucking vicious. She is disgusting when you are unprepared for her. She is kind of cheesable, but when you choose not to do that, it's still a very good back and forth. You're told to use snap seeds. Snap seeds are an option for the second phase. A lot of the summon things are like a little bit annoying. For the most part, she's just really interesting for learning deflection timings, jump timings. This is, I guess, like the first boss in which you would want to be doing jumps and then, you know, essentially double jumps for posture damage, and then using the shuriken to do posture damage when she's jumping around in the air. And of course, she has a personal connection with Wolf. Something that we don't really get much of in any of the other Souls games, because in Sekiro, Wolf is like an actual character. It's not just a blank slate for the player. So that creates some story opportunities that didn't exist in the other games. But yeah. Lady Butterfly, I would say, is also some quality. I would probably put her like around here. Next we have Genichiro. I will include the tutorial Genichiro in here as well. He is such a fantastic wall for players. He is there to make sure, hey, do you know how to play the game yet? Yeah, you've been through a few areas, you've beat a couple bosses, but, you know, they had some cheesable aspects to them. Gyobu, you can just spam fireworks for the most part. With Lady Butterfly, if you learn to do the dodge attack, you just spam her to death with that. Genichiro doesn't really have weaknesses like that. Yeah, you can use both of those things against him, but they're like nowhere near as effective. And if you don't take Genichiro seriously, he's gonna smack the fuck out of you. He's a very interesting case because I see him generally underrated a lot simply because after your first playthrough, he's easy. He's a fucking joke. He's laughably easy after you've played through the game at least one time. But on that first playthrough, don't lie to yourselves. Don't lie to us. He kicked the shit out of you. He massacred you. And I think that's part of what makes a really good boss, especially in one of these games, where the first time you encounter him, you're unfamiliar with the combat system, you're still learning, he's brutal. He's a vicious challenge. But once you've mastered the gameplay, and once you've mastered the boss, he's a cakewalk. Most certainly some top quality. I would put him probably around here. Around there somewhere. Actually, you know what? I will put him over Abyss Watchers. Yeah, I will do that. Folding Screen Monkeys. Yeah. You're just fucking chasing them around everywhere. It honestly does kind of slip into annoying territory a bit. Guardian Ape. Okay, I love this boss. I love this boss because it's just so creative. I can tell that they had a lot of fun making this boss. It's a giant gorilla. It fights like a wild animal. It farts on you. It reaches up inside of its own asshole, digs out its own feces, and chucks it at you. And that fucking cop-out, that fake-out, when they give you that Shinobi execution, everyone's like, oh, hey, it's over. I know, it was pretty tough. It was a lot more chaotic than most of the bosses we fought thus far. Deflecting it doesn't really do a ton of posture change. Oh, it's getting back up. Fuck. Then it picks up its decapitated head in one hand and then uses the sword. Now you're fighting a giant headless ape with a big-ass sword that doesn't really move around like an ape. It moves around like a centipede or something. And in that second phase, it's honestly much easier because, well, you can just kind of deflect all of its attacks. I also like that you can use the spear to rip out the parasite. Not to mention, it has a pretty good story as well. It is a tragic character, something I would not have expected from a giant beast fight in a game where most of the bosses are humanoids. Guardian Ape, definitely also some top quality stuff. I would put them around here. Yes. Yeah. Headless Ape Duo. Okay. It goes around here. Because what if we took the Guardian Ape and we just had there be Phase 1 and 2 at the same time? And it's just in a big room. We didn't really put any effort into trying to optimize it as a duo fight or anything. Yeah. So sad. What an unfortunate case. Corrupted Monk. They're good, but they are made irrelevant due to the fact that they are essentially just Phase 1 of another boss. So I'll put them like around here-ish. Now, if you choose to do the Shura ending, we get a two-part boss starting off with Emma, the Gentle Blade. She's pretty good. She's fairly solid. Not really anything too crazy, but pretty good. She's basically kind of like a bit of a toned-down Ishin, because, well, you know, she's the first phase of the Ishin fight. It's meant to kind of train you what to expect from Ishin. It's not that hard, generally speaking, but I don't think it's really meant to be, because it's the evil ending. You are murdering one of your allies in cold blood. And it is pretty good from a story perspective in that regard, but once again, it's just the opening act for Ishin Ashina. This fight, in my opinion, is heavily underrated, because, well, you know, it's a less good version of another boss fight, but it's still really cool. That opening cutscene is sick as fuck. The sing of the steel as Ishin unsheathes his sword, and all of the stupid anime bullshit that he does during this fight. Fucking One Mind, him swinging his sword so hard that the air pressure's moving the fire to do big fire attacks. It's really cool, and the OST is great. The only thing that could maybe be an issue with it is sometimes getting caught on, like, the edges of the arena, but other than that, it's a fantastic boss. How high would I put it? How high? Probably like, he doesn't have the bad run-up. Sorry, Alon. Now, if you choose to keep playing the game normally, you get Great Shinobi Owl. This is another similar case to Corrupted Monk. It's pretty solid. It's great from a story perspective. It's neat that Owl uses a bunch of shinobi tricks on you. He uses a bunch of scummy tactics on you, because one, he's a shinobi. There's a difference between honor and victory. But two, he's old as shit now, so, you know, he can't really rely on his skill as much as he used to be able to. It kind of suffers from some of the arena problems that the Emma and Ishin fight suffer from, but overall, it's still pretty good. I would probably put it, like, around here somewhere. Actually, yeah, I'd put it over Shadows. And then we have Owl Father, who, you know, we go through a bunch of convoluted bullshit to get to because it's a FromSoft game, of course we do, but he's effectively just Owl, but what if we replaced the annoying stuff in the owl fight and just replaced it with really cool shit, like the ghost owl and his teleportations and shit, his use of the Mist Raven. Does he use Mist Raven in the normal Owl Father? I can't actually remember. Well, regardless, it's a fantastic fight. It's so good. You know, being able to fight Owl in something a little bit closer to his prime. I think it's more so Owl's perception of himself from that time. I would put it quite high up, as a matter of fact. I would put it, like, around here. It's very good. Though, in a funny twist of fate, I would say Owl Father ends up suffering from the same thing as Great Shinobi Owl, and that there is literally just a better version of the same fight. But we'll get to that. The True Corrupted Monk. Okay, so it's Corrupted Monk, but a 3-phase fight. First phase is exactly the same. Second phase, it does like some shadow clone shit that you can just instant kill by jumping up onto one of the branches, if you so desire. Second phase, the centipede sprouts out and starts doing some terror stuff. This fight basically has nothing wrong with it. It's just a really good deflection test. Almost all, like, deflecting Corrupted Monk is so satisfying. That's one of the best things about Sekiro's combat, is the satisfaction that comes from doing perfect deflections, that sound effect, that orange flash, the fucking dopamine rush that you get from that every time is incomparable. And the music slaps, and the arena for it is really pretty. True Corrupted Monk, I would say, definitely goes somewhere up around here. Would it? Yes, it would. Yeah. Yep. It would. I'm fairly confident in that. Next we have Divine Dragon. It's a gimmick boss, but it's a cool gimmick boss. The arena's beautiful. The design of the dragon's really cool. The music's great. You're jumping up into the air and throwing lightning at it. And then you finish it off by running up its pseudo-moonlight greatsword and stabbing it in the eye. Is it easy? Yes. Do I care? No. It's really cool. I would put it like... Shit, I don't know. Somewhere around here. Yeah, somewhere around there. Actually, do I like it more than Guardian Ape? I don't know. I don't know. I don't care. Demon of Hatred. Okay, this is a boss that I've had some character development in regards to. I've mentioned it a few times in the past, on like streams and stuff, but for the longest time I really hated the Demon of Hatred, ironically, because I didn't like that it was essentially a Dark Souls boss in Sekiro, which has effectively spent the entirety of the game teaching you, hey, this isn't Dark Souls, stop playing it like Dark Souls. And then they hit you with an endgame boss that you're supposed to fight like a Dark Souls boss. And I didn't like that. I didn't like that seemingly you were supposed to more so avoid most of its attacks as opposed to deflecting. And then during the playthrough, because I wanted to show off the boss, I actually fought it normally. And you know what I found out? I actually kind of like it. Yes, I do have some issues with it, but it's really a fight that's meant to further encourage the usage of Shinobi tools. I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with that, but I think there's a difference between a fight being easier when you use optional tools and a fight being more enjoyable when you use optional tools. And in this case, it's less enjoyable if you don't use the fire shield and the malcontent whistle. Yeah, it's a very rewarding challenge. It's really good from a story perspective. It's a sad end to the sculptor's story, though maybe more so bittersweet because you're releasing him from his suffering. Um, I would put it in top quality somewhere here. Do I like it any more than these bosses? I cannot say for certain. Genichiro, Way of Tomoe, he exists. He is the first phase for the final boss. He is a fucking cakewalk. He's a joke. He's laughable. Still not bad, but, like, there's nothing crazy about him. I would put him, like, I don't know, around here or something. Now, Ishin, the Sword Saint. Yeah, him, I debate between him and Gurman being the best final bosses in any FromSoft game. Soul of Cinder is, competing, well, it's not really competing for anything, it's essentially in third place. I love the nostalgia for it, but, like, in terms of atmosphere and emotion and spectacle, I think those two definitely are superior to it. But Ishin, more so in terms of mechanics, I think mechanically he's, like, unquestionably the best final boss. He is the ultimate challenge for the players. Every single thing you have learned to do in the game is put to the test. You want to beat Sekiro? Show me that you've mastered it. That's what Ishin's there for. The other thing that's really cool is it's Ishin fighting you just because he's there for a good fight. Yeah, Genichiro sacrificed his life, and it was his last wish for Ishin to save Ashina and fight Sekiro. But Ishin also just really wants to fight Sekiro. He died of old age. That was the most horrible fate for a person like him. So this is finally his chance to have the end that he dreamed of. And he gets to have it with an immortal body and a sword capable of slaying anything. And then also a big spear and a gun? There's just so much cool shit during this fight. It's just mechanically so satisfying. It's another case, for me personally, where first playthrough, oh, he's disgusting. He's the hardest boss in the game. He's going to ruin your life. But once you've mastered him, once you've mastered the game, he's not that bad. He just becomes an incredibly fun challenge. Ishin, for his mechanics, spectacle, and story, joins these fine gentlemen in clearing the Bible. I put him below Gurman here just because Gurman kind of hits me with more of an emotional impact, but ask me a different day of the week and they may swap positions. Now we get on to the last kind of subset of bosses, the inner variants. After they added the reflections of strength, we got some boss gauntlets, and at the end of the 3 normal gauntlets, we got new variants of 3 bosses that now had new moves, and generally speaking, were just kind of harder than the original versions. Starting off with Genichiro. Genichiro, inner Genichiro, really messes you up, because you're presumably used to normal Genichiro, and as such, don't really expect much from inner Genichiro. He has some things you are not going to be familiar with. The most notable one being Sakura Dance, which is really hard to counter. He is essentially normal Genichiro, but for people that have already mastered normal Genichiro, to give them a new challenge. I would put him... Where would I put him? Down here, honestly. Would I? No, I'd put him a little bit above normal Genichiro. I don't think he gets quite up to peak. He's very good, but not quite peak. So, Inner Father, right? What if we took Owl Father, and we gave him even more moves, and made him even more responsive? Inner Father is maybe the most fun boss in the game, because it is almost entirely just a pure reactive experience. You are just straight up reacting to everything that happens. And the boss is incredibly responsive to everything that you do. We take kind of the story aspects to Owlfather, and then just make them even better, in which I would say this is probably the only instance of that amongst the inner variants, where the story components to the boss are even better, which is ironic because the reflections are almost entirely disconnected from the rest of the game. The idea of Inner Father being Sekiro's own internal view of Owl, his own perception of him, the person that he sees him as, and how that's described as being more than Owl could have ever hoped to be. And I'm going to make a controversial decision here. I think Inner Father is actually the best boss in the game. I actually think he's better than Ishin. I know that's probably not the most uncommon take, because I know if there's ever someone that doesn't say Ishin's the best boss, 99% of the time they'll say it's Owlfather or Inner Father. If they're counting the inner variants. I'm fairly confident in that. They're both incredibly fun, but I think Ishin's a bit more on the predictable side, whereas Owl is much more unpredictable. I don't know exactly what it is. Just for me, he is a slightly more gratifying experience than Ishin. And now we get the last boss, Inner Ishin. And this may be a bit of a hot take, but I don't like Inner Ishin as much as normal Sword Saint Ishin. The extra moves that are added to him, I don't think they really add that much to the boss. Especially like kind of the big Mortal Draw ring at the start of the fight. And that's like the only time he does it in the fight. And then he has the extra spear combos. They are not really that fun to me. Like, I feel like they're just added to make the fight more difficult, but don't really add much to it. And then it doesn't really have the story build-up of normal Ishin. It's just kind of there. But it's still great. I mean, it's still Sword Saint Ishin. It's just the things that get added on don't really add anything to the boss for me. So, I mean, I would still put him very high up, because he's fucking Ishin. I would put him probably around here. Hot take, maybe. I don't know. But with that, that's all the bosses in Sekiro. What did you guys think? Do you disagree with any of my placements? What would your placements be? Next time we're going to be ranking all the bosses in Elden Ring, and I think I'm going to do a stream for that. I had originally considered doing a 2-part video per suggestion, one ranking the mini-bosses, the field bosses, and then one doing the main bosses. However, frankly, I feel most people just straight up wouldn't give a shit about a video about, like, all of the field bosses and stuff, because, well, most of them are reuses, are just really not as interesting as the main bosses. So I think someday this week I'm just going to do a stream. We'll do it live. And it'll be a fine good time. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that whenever I do it. But yeah, with that, that's all for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my uploads. I have a whole bunch of Soulsborne and Elden Ring stuff on the channel you can check out. And if you like discussing any of that stuff, you should check out my Discord server. I have a link to it down in the description. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys around. Take care.